Hello, this is Professor Nugent, and today we'll be going over Chapter 7, Formulating Corporate Strategy. So corporate strategy is basically where the management want to take the company. So the management have to get together, decide on a direction, and decide on a plan for what the business is going to do moving forward. All its products, all its subdivisions, all its investments. So it's really sitting down and thinking about, this is everything that we own. What do we want to do with it, and how do we want the company to change moving forward? Now, a directional strategy, it's the orientation that they want to take the company. Some companies are looking for growth, some companies are looking for more stability, and some companies are looking to pull back and consolidate. It all depends on what's going to maximize shareholders' wealth, which strategy will best maximize shareholders' wealth. Portfolio analysis is looking at industries or markets in which the firm is involved in and trying to figure out which products and business units are inside of which industry and markets and the overall condition of those markets. Now, if you look at a parenting strategy, this is how management is going to coordinate the activities among the different product lines and business units to transfer, allocate, and be responsible for corporate resources, capabilities, and it's really just, if you hear the term parent company, so you might talk of a division or a store, and then a store is just part of a larger company. So it's the parent company is really the head, top of the leadership, deciding what's best for all its different products, brands, and units within it. Now, as I talked about before, there's three corporate directional strategies. Growth, which is probably the most common, which if you're in an industry where typically you want to do this when you're in an industry where there's growth or a large amount of, you have a small amount of market share and you're looking to get a larger amount of market share. And you could concentrate on vertical growth, which is looking to take over functions within the business chain. So for example, if you're a manufacturer, you may want to buy retail locations, or you may want to buy the raw materials procurer. Okay. There's also horizontal growth, where you buy competitors or open up businesses in the same area in which you compete. So if you're a fast food franchise, you either expand into making new locations, so you do more of a horizontal expansion of your current business. Now, stability, and this is really basically not looking to build new locations, acquire new companies. This is more just staying the same and trying to maintain your market share, trying to maintain your product lines. And the retrenchment is really just slowing down, pulling back, retreating, discontinuing unprofitable product lines, and just trying to wring out the last bits of profit from your business. Now, each of these we're going to go over in more detail. Let's just see, what is okay. So we're going to go over the growth strategies and all these strategies in more detail because they're important. So the basics are, growth, you want to expand the company's activities. Stability, you don't want to make any big changes. You want to maintain the status quo. And retrenchment, you want to reduce or scale back the business's activities. Now, a common growth strategy is a merger. So two companies come together in sort of a joint exchange of stock and become one big company. So maybe you have an industry. You take the airline industry, and there might be a lot of competitors, and two companies, say JetBlue and Southwest, decide to merge and become one bigger company to compete with American and Delta. And that's one way to grow your business when there really isn't much growth as far as expanding your current company. It might make sense to buy a more successful competitor and just merge and become a larger company and use the economies of scale to generate more profits. Now, an acquisition is different than a merger. Here, you're actually purchasing another company. So you're just going and buying another company outright and becoming a full owner of that company. A merger is sort of like a marriage where two people are coming together and everything's going to be jointly shared and decided upon. But an acquisition is a straight out purchase of, say, when you buy a car. Okay, so vertical growth, I had mentioned before. There's what we call sort of like a value chain, and you can look at the vertical business chain where you start off with the raw materials, the people who make, manufacture, and collect the raw materials. You can think of that sort of, if you're think about food, the people who grow the corn and maybe the wheat and make, and supply that to the manufacturer who's going to take that and make the flour and make, say, pizza, and then, or dough. And then this is going to be sold at retail locations. So there's, three main levels: raw materials, manufacturer, retail. So it's a vertical, three big platforms in the vertical chain. So if you wanted vertical growth and you were a retailer, you may want to move back and buy the manufacturer and then move back and even work as the collector of the raw materials. And a lot of times, a big example of this is many companies like Exxon. They'll actually extract the oil from the ground. They'll be the manufacturer middleman, and they will refine the oil into gasoline, and then they'll sell it at retail at their gasoline stations. So that would be a vertical type of growth. Now, a vertical integration is really the process which, if you look at all the different points between the different vertical businesses, how it's about putting them in line and integrating them to one chain. So the whole direct feed from raw material to finished product is in one chain of companies. So then they operate together, and that way it's sort of where this phrase "cut out the middleman" comes from. So if you're a retailer and you're selling anything, you're buying from a middleman, a manufacturer, or a distributor, and they're taking a certain percentage of the profits. So it becomes much more profitable for you to actually make the product and sell it at your own retail location than to buy it from a manufacturer and mark it up. So this way you can keep the profit at the manufacturing level as well as the retail level. Okay, so if you're thinking backwards or forwards integration, you have to get sort of a point of view of the value, the vertical chain. So if you're moving up the vertical chain, that's a forward integration. Where you are, you're a supplier, you're looking to buy a manufacturer and then the retail. If you're doing a backwards integration, you're a retailer and you're looking to buy the manufacturer or the raw materials provider. So it's just what direction you're expanding on the value chain. Okay. Now, the vertical integration is, they say it's more efficient than contracting for goods and services in the marketplace because of the costs of the middleman, basically. So if you can do the work yourself, you don't have to pay the transaction costs of buying it from another manufacturer. So the integration provides higher profit margins because you're not sharing the profits with anybody else along the way. You're owning all the companies, and you have better ability to manage costs, make changes, and provide a quicker adaptation or change to your products for what your customer needs. So it just makes the companies a little bit more flexible and a little bit more versatile and profitable. And you're also able to, if you're outsourcing and you're buying a manufactured product from somebody else, the lead times and the coordination and negotiations all takes time and money, and it could be very time consuming and drain a lot of profits for a company. Now, the amount of integration a company takes, some companies can be fully integrated like an oil company, and that's usually a typical example of a fully integrated company. Or some companies could have more of a quasi or tapered integration, where it's not producing all of the products it needs. It's producing some of the products and buying the rest from outsiders. And typically, most companies are tapered or a quasi integration, where they are relying on some of their main products they may do themselves. However, some of the other products they may rely on subcontractors or other suppliers. Pharmaceuticals and companies could be looked at like this way. So if you take, some big pharmaceutical companies or even vitamin companies, they may have the machineries to make the tablets or the capsules, but they may not be able to make the gel caps, or they may not be able to make a liquid forms of vitamins. And so in able to expand their product line without having to take the additional capital cost of buying new equipment, they may just go to a subcontractor for that small piece of the business. And then when the business grows and becomes more significant and bigger, then they can actually look to bring that in-house and manufacture it themselves. Okay, so this is just more basically what I'm saying. The full integration is 100% of, you're doing 100% of everything yourself, and you can controlling all the manufacturers and distributors and suppliers. And like I said, Chaper is less than 50% from outside suppliers. And a quasi-integration, you're purchasing most of the requirements for outside, but you have some control. Now, there's also long-term contracts where two companies agree to provide goods and services for each other, so they kind of integrate, but they remain two separate entities, but sort of make a promise to be there for each other so they can rely on each other for the amount of products that they need. Because that's the problem. If you deal with a subcontractor and they suddenly say we're raising prices, or we're no longer in business, we're going out of business, now you're stuck. That's why the vertical integration is a little bit more useful. Okay. There is horizontal growth and horizontal integration. Now, this is expanding your operations to other geographic locations and or increasing the range of products or services offered in current markets. So this is really, say you're a retailer and you want to open up new retail stores in foreign countries, or maybe you're sort of Sears and you have your department stores, but you want to open up Sears hardware as sort of a further expansion, a horizontal expansion to focus just on appliances and tools, which is a big profit generation for Sears. Although that Sears hardware, I think, was actually broken off and sold to another company later on, but it was a horizontal growth at one point. And the horizontal integration is really the degree to which a firm operates multiple geographic locations at the same point on the industry's value chain. So we're really just looking at how much of this have they done at this particular point. And so, yes, so horizontal, you could think of it as sort of a restaurant chain, sort of like Red Lobster developing, Olive Garden developing, Chili's on the border, expanding their restaurant locations and their restaurant brands, but it's all horizontal. They're not vertically moving into suppliers or manufacturers. They're not buying a company that makes their silverware and plates and food and things like that. All right. Now let's move this up a bit. International entry options for horizontal growth. So if you want to grow your company horizontally, there's a few things you can do. One, probably the easiest, is exporting. You can just, and I guess it depends on where you're exporting to, but exporting it can minimize your risk because you're keeping all your manufacturing in your home base stable, but you're taking your products and you're shipping it to another country to be sold. And exporting is a pretty common function for most companies in this global marketplace, and really it's just shipping your products to another country to be sold. You could also make an acquisition in a foreign country to help get a piece of the market, get some expertise, and move your products through them. I once worked for a networking company that was an American company, but the networking division was acquired by a Taiwanese company, and that's how they were able to get into the very lucrative American markets, because the company was SMC Networks, and they had a strong presence in the American markets. So this Taiwanese company wanted to bring over their new products and capture the brand name, so the acquisition was an easy way to get into the U.S. markets. Also licensing. So you can, as a license, you can grant another manufacturer, another company the license to actually make your products and sell your products, and you get a licensing fee. And that's actually a pretty common place. Also, franchising is very common, where everybody thinks of McDonald's as the example of a franchise, but basically it's where you team up and you sell somebody the name and operational system of your company, and as the franchisee, they agree to pay you a percentage of sales or a royalty. So if you have a company that's very successful like McDonald's, you can get somebody else in a foreign country to put the money up to build a McDonald's and operate it, and you take part of the profits as the person providing the brand name, the products, the recipes, the formulas, the ingredients, the know-how, and you kind of go into a partnership like this. And that's, on a bigger scale, it could be there's another way that usually franchising is from a company to an individual. But joint ventures are when two companies come together, maybe a foreign company and a domestic company come together, and they put together a strategy to make a new, to enter into a new country, maybe even make a new company, but they put together a joint venture. The expertise of both companies are going to come together, and the firm is going to be hosted in the new country. So it's a quick method of obtaining local management, and so if you were, I'm trying to think of a good example, but if you were a retailer and you were a retailer and you wanted to expand into another country, you could go and make a joint venture with a retailer in another country and then sell your products through them. Let's go back to this greenfield development. Now, so if a company doesn't want to purchase another company, and because when you purchase another company, it takes a lot of money, there's a lot of problems, there's a lot to deal with, it may choose this greenfield development and build its own manufacturing plant, its own distribution system. So this is sort of really doing it yourself. Companies that have a certain amount of secrecy or patents or know-how they want to protect, they may want to not just hand it over so easily to another company in a joint venture or even in a franchise. They may actually want to just go and do it themselves. And that some companies, it's the right decision for them depending on what the products and the technology is. There's also production sharing, which means the combination of higher labor skills and technology in developing countries with the lower labor cost available in those countries. So you could take sort of a manufacturer in the U.S. can go and they can move one of its production plants out of the U.S. into a lower cost region to be able to manufacture at a lower price. And sometimes just by operating or building a presence in a foreign country, they also gain rights to sell those products within that country as well. There's also turnkey operations. This is basically a company will set up a contract for the construction of an operating facility in exchange for money, of course. So the facilities are transferred to the host country or firm when they are complete. So a customer, usually a government agency, for example, a Middle East country that has decreed for a particular product must be produced locally and under its control. So in this case, you would want to build a local production plant and sort of have a turnkey operation that all the equipment and the materials and the supply for the project will be there, and you can just automatically make it directly as you would in your host country. Because some countries may say, you can't sell here, we're not going to take any imports, which is import is on the other side of exporting. So if you export to another country, they're importing it. So if they are a really tight market where you can't import into, you may have to build your own operation inside the company to manufacture inside the country to manufacture the product to sell it domestically. There's this BOT concept, build, operate, and transfer, and this is sort of variation in the turnkey operation where instead of turning the facility over to the host country when completed, the company will operate the facility themselves for a fixed period of time. So in the turnkey operation, you're actually going in, building the plant, and allowing the country to kind of take over after you're done. But in the bot operation, you're going to run it for a while. And the last is a management contract where a large corporation is likely to have some sort of, if the corporation has a particular pool of talented managers, they can offer a contract which the corporation can use some of its personnel to assist a firm or host country for a specific period of time. So so if the host country has to have a part of ownership in the country in order to sell the products, then you're sort of going to work with them and allow the firm to continue to earn some income from its investment, but keep the operations going until the local government is trained. So these are all different options for horizontal growth into international markets. And the thing you have to realize is not all international markets are like the U.S. In the U.S., companies could come here, be free, make their products, sell to customers. In other countries, they're a little bit more controlling, and they're going to say that if you want to build an auto manufacturing plant in our country, then there must be a transfer of know-how. There must be part of the company has to be owned, or all the company has to be owned by the government. You can operate it and collect some of the profits, but the government's going to have ownership of the actual building facilities and sales within the country. So there's different various levels of controls that you have to be aware of for expanding internationally. Okay, so let's talk about some diversification strategies. So we're gonna grow into a related industry. So concentric related diversification is we're going to grow, but we're going to stay within a related industry where we have a strong competitive position. But maybe the attractiveness is low. So maybe this is McDonald's looking to expand into student lunches. So they're not going to compete on the retail level on the street, but they're going to go into the schools and operate lunch services in schools as sort of a diversification, but in a related food industry. And it helps to be more successful because you understand the core business and the strategies that can make you successful in this business. Now, synergy is a concept of when two companies come together, their total business will be more profitable together than what they could do separately. So, for example, if Marvel Comics is purchased by Disney, is a big example in this course, Disney can generate more profits than Marvel could alone, because Disney can integrate the Marvel characters into its merchandising arm, into its theme parks, into its cartoons, expand with additional capital into other TV projects, and really be able to generate much more profits from Marvel than Marvel was doing on its own with their partnerships. Unrelated diversification is just like it seems. This is where you're moving into industries that are not related to your current ones. So it would sort of be like McDonald's buying a cement company, or McDonald's buying a defense company. So it's really expanding. So when some companies become very, very large, there's only so much they can do in the space in which they operate in. So in some cases, when there are a lot of money is building up, there may be a pressure for them to diversify into other industries where there's more room to grow or which is more attractive. And so this could be for some companies a successful strategy if their own markets are they're at the limit of the expansion of their own markets and they want to diversify into new markets. Now, so the big question is it better to grow vertically or horizontally? And to answer that, basically, it depends on the industry. So in some industries, if there's room to grow horizontally, you may want to do that first before you grow vertically, or you may want to grow vertically and horizontally at the same time. It just matters on what's right for the industry. So, is concentrating better than diversifying? Some industries, yes. If your product is entertainment, you may want to stay within the entertainment industries rather than diversify into something completely unknown, like manufacturing cars. Although there is a rumor that Apple may want to manufacture a car, which would be would be a diversification out of their known area. So concentric diversification may be sort of like Apple when they took their computer into iPods, and then iPods into phones, and then phones into watches and iPads. Those were concentric diversifications into similar markets but different industries. So is it better to do a concentric or a conglomerate diversification where you're buying completely or moving in a completely unrelated industry? Depends on the company. Okay. Now, if we look at the stability strategies, We have the pause, proceed with caution, which is basically taking a rest, seeing what's happening before continuing to grow or retrench. So it's really just taking a pause or a break to kind of see, what's happening. So things are changing in the marketplace. You're not really sure what direction to go in. So you just stand still until more information comes in. A no change strategy would be simply to do nothing. Don't change the strategy, continue the course, continue the current policies, and it's just a holding position. Profit strategies, remember, companies are always about maximizing their profits. So a profit strategy could be the decision to do nothing new. If in a worsening situation, to do nothing new, but instead act as if the company's problems are only temporary. So you don't want to make any rash decisions, make any big investments, and just really, you don't want to spend your profits on something that may be unprofitable. You just want to wait and see if the problems get better. Now, retrenchment strategies, this is not as common, but sometimes the firm is in the market where the firm has a weak position and some of its product lines are performing very poorly. So they may just want to really rethink, pull back, sell or discontinue some of their product lines, focus on what product lines are still making money. And this could be in a maturing or declining industry where you just want to pull back and try to profit from what's left of this particular market. Now, in a retrenchment strategy, you may want to do a turnaround strategy, which is going to be this is something that Wonder Bread, Woodmaker of Twinkies, and Hostess tried to do for a while, which was improve operation efficiency. But the problem is the problems got so critical that they went bankrupt. So their retrenchment failed because their costs were just too unmanageable. But in some cases, companies can pull back, get to more solid footing before they expand again. And the whole emphasis is on, okay, let's look at our operations. What's inefficient? Where are we losing money? What's not working? And actually trying to fix it. Now, a contraction is really, if things are really horrible, you have to pull back to stop the bleeding. Lay off people, close plants, maybe even file a bankruptcy to really try to protect the company from a more dire situation. And consolidation is really just, shedding all the weak parts of the company and becoming a new, leaner corporation. So if you're in an industry where you have all these legacy costs and expensive labor and the weight of the whole industry is just too much, you may just want to really kind of sell off large parts of your company and just focus on one small, profitable division. Okay. So other retrenchment strategies, we can look at this capture company strategy, which involves giving up the independence of exchange for security. So a company with a weak competitive position may not be able to engage in a full-blown turnaround strategy. The industry may not be sufficiently attractive to justify such an effort from either the current management or investors. Nonetheless, the company is in a situation faces poor sales and increasing losses unless it takes some action. So management desperately are in search of an angel to be offered to sort of capture the company into one of its larger customers, or generate a guarantee that the company can continue to exist through a contract or some other way. So you're looking for someone to really kind of bail your company out for you. A sellout or diversification strategy, if a corporation is, say, if it's in a weak competitive position in the industry and it's really not able to, pull itself together, or to find a customer which could become, a savior, it may have no choice but to sell out. And the sellout strategy makes sense if management can still obtain a good price for its shareholders and the employees can keep their jobs, the entire company, into selling the entire company or division to another firm in hopes that the other company will be more successful in running it than the current company. All right. So those are sort of two, the sellout strategy and the divestment strategy is basically just sells off the division altogether. So this could be, in many cases, there are many companies that had a division and then, that wasn't really working out well, but it maybe fit into another company's better position, so they just sold it to the other company to just be done with it. Bankruptcy, which I mentioned before, is really just kind of the management can't afford to pay the bills, so they need legal protection from the government, so they go into a bankruptcy position to see if they could reformulate the company into a point where they can either come back or they can liquidate. And liquidation is really the company just closing the doors and selling the assets of the firm. Okay, so let's go back to portfolio analysis, and here we're going to analyze the product lines and business units of a company to see, just to get a better idea of what the company is doing and how much each of the product lines or products contribute back to the company. So we have this very famous chart where we put the companies into one of four boxes. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to talk about these separately. They have the stars, the question mark, the cash cows, and the dogs. So these are four particular boxes that you can put your product or your divisions or your product lines into to get sort of a quick portfolio analysis. Now, the question marks, these are sort of unknowns. They're products that have potential for success, but they need still a lot more development, a lot more money to be invested, a lot more advertising, a lot more brand building. So it's something that could work. We're just not sure yet. Now, stars are just like what it seems. These are the companies really moving forward their best products. So they're sort of they're nearing their peak of their product life cycle. They're able to generate a lot of cash. They can maintain a high market share, and they're very profitable. This is really what the company wants more of stars, because stars are really the rising, growing, profitable prestige products that the company is selling that really make the company who they are. Cash cows are products that are still very profitable, but don't have a huge amount of growth. They're in more of a stable or declining stage of the product life cycle, but they're still generating lots of cash and lots of profits. So you don't want to get rid of them, but you still, it's not the future of the company, because eventually they're not going to be around forever. And the dogs are products which, have a low market share, low potential for future growth. They're kind of unattractive, but they do bring in some money. But we know that their time is ending shortly. So they're just legacy products you're selling, your company's known for, but they're not really a big profit area or growth area, but your company's just not ready yet to kill them. Okay, so what that chart was looking at is called a BCG growth, which is BCG is actually a Boston consulting group, a very famous consulting group that did a lot of strategic management, but in this chart, which is used by a lot of companies, and the terminology is certainly used in common lingo, but there are some limitations. It's too simplistic. It's just four categories, and there are a lot of products that fit in between the cracks. The link between market share and profitability is not always well defined. The growth that the chart focuses on mainly is only one aspect of the attractiveness of certain industries. And you're sometimes it's hard to relate different product lines and business units as one competitor in one chart. There are some advantages. It encourages management to have a dialogue and discussion about the objectives and their allocation. That chart can start a dialogue of portfolio analysis that just kind of is a quick visual way to get managers to think about their objectives and what do they want to do with their different product lines and how they want to allocate resources of capital and labor into different divisions or product lines. It could, the portfolio analysis can help with thinking about data and collecting data and, getting additional information to supplement the manager's decisions or give more expertise to the managers. And for them to look a little bit more carefully at the cash flow and how to expand and control the cash flow of a company. Limitations of the portfolio analysis is it's difficult, takes time. Sometimes they can be wrong. Standard strategies may not work, or they may miss opportunities. Sometimes when they pigeonhole or label some of their products or divisions, they may be giving up on them too soon, or they may be really setting themselves up for failure. And it could be really a lack of clarity of what's attractive to the customer, the industry, or really where a product is in the product lifecycle. There's been plenty of times when they thought products were dead, but they still continue to thrive. One thing could be thought of as the slate chalkboard. So when they invented or came up with the whiteboards with the colored markers, they thought that, okay, well, that's the end of making slate chalkboards for classrooms. But it turns out that those products actually went into sort of a growth phase where they were actually repurposed into smaller chalkboards, and they became fashionable to have in coffee shops where using colored chalk, and it was just more aesthetically pleasing than the grease boards, the whiteboards. So sometimes management may miss the mark on this. Okay, so some tasks that are necessary for managing a strategic alliance portfolio. So if we're going to look at one, developing and implementing a portfolio strategy for each business unit and a corporation policy for managing all the alliances in the entire company. And so this is basically the first step. Having some sort of strategy for all the businesses and all the alliances that you have. Do these make sense? Are they working? Should we think about changing anything? After that, monitoring the alliance portfolio in terms of implementing the strategies, the corporate and corporate strategies and policies, as far as how are you going to put these strategies in place and then make sure that they're working or monitor how their progress. Step 3, coordinating the portfolio to see, this is really what they say here is obtaining synergies and avoiding conflicts. When you have a lot of different companies working together, just like you may have brothers and sisters in your family, or you may have a team that you're working on in class of other students, it's difficult to get everybody to work together and to figure out how to avoid conflicts of interest. Different companies in your business competing against each other or fighting each other when they should be fighting the competitors outside the company. So trying to look for where two different divisions or corporations within one company can work together. So if you have, one company that has, a successful, so maybe you take Kellogg's and a media company like Disney, you put them together, and then you could start making cereal for cartoon characters that you just haven't explored before. Or maybe you get a different companies that could overlap their assets to generate even more sales. That would be the synergy you're looking for. And for establish an alliance management system, support all of the cross alliances and cross divisional management. So some sort of system that these companies will be working together and not separately. Okay, so let's talk about corporate parenting. This is really where, think of the main corporate headquarters being the parent and having children that are very many other different businesses or product lines or units, and they have to come up with a strategy to keep the family together and keep the family being productive and generating as much profits as possible and not missing out any opportunities in the challenge of communicating all of the needs of the parent company's companies. So it's really trying to foster a supportive and superior performance from all the business units by really making sure everything's efficient and there's really no duplication of effort where there doesn't need to be. Okay. So you want to focus on the corporate parenting, they should focus on the core competencies of the company and make sure that those core competencies are established and utilized within the business units. So they can create a relationship between the parent company and the other businesses they're working with. So if the parent company has a really strong brand name, they want to make sure they leverage that brand name into the other companies as well. Okay, so developing a corporate strategy as a parent company, you want to, as a parent unit, you want to establish each business unit in terms of strategic factors. So you want to have, identify the strategic factors that each of the business units are going to be operating on. So maybe each business unit establishes a center of excellence or something that they do well, but you want to really examine and determine the strategic factors of each of the business units. To examine business units in terms of areas in which they perform, performance can be improved. So look at each of the business units and see, there might be one business unit where the marketing is really poor, and then that has to be improved. And another business unit where the marketing is really successful, and they can kind of share resources, ideas, and trying to help each other. And analyze how well the parent company corporation fits with the business unit. So how well is the parent company doing a job in establishing, growing, and supporting a business unit? There was for a while, McDonald's owned Boston Market, and at one point, McDonald's decided that the parent corporation wasn't really a good fit for Boston Market, so they divested and sold Boston Market to other investors because they just really weren't focusing on the growth or the expansion of Boston Market or innovation of its products. They wanted to focus more on the McDonald's brand, so that at that point, the parent company was able to realize the limitations of having a Boston Market as a business unit, and they decided to get rid of them. Okay, so let's go back to horizontal strategy. And this is a strategy where we're going to cut across the business units boundaries to build a synergy between business units and improve the competitive position one or more of the business units. So when this is used to build synergy, the parent company is going to develop a strategy that's going to integrate the business units in a way that's going to generate more business overall for the total company. So hopefully improve its competitive position in one or more business units. So they want to develop a strategy that's going to take advantage of all these business units and to help them grow and help to make sure that each of the business units can take advantage of everything the company has to offer. So there might be expertise in one business that would be very beneficial that they want to bring over to another business. So you could have a pharmaceutical manufacturer that has different divisions, and now they want, one division may be very good at retailing and selling their products at the retail level, and they want to be able to help another division move their products to the retail level away from maybe the distribution level if they have success in that area. Okay, and finally, there's this midpoint competition where large multinational corporations compete against each other or against other large multinational businesses in a number of markets. So these midpoint competitors are firms that compete with each other not only in one business unit but also in a number of business units. So at one time or another, a cash-rich competitor may choose to build its own market share in a particular market to the disadvantage of another corporation's business unit. Although each business unit has primarily responsibilities for its own business strategy, it may sometimes need the help of a corporate parent, especially if a competitor unit is getting heavily financial support from its corporate parent. So in this instance, corporate headquarters develops a horizontal strategy to coordinate various goals and strategies of related business units. So basically saying a smaller business unit may get in trouble, and they may be one business unit within a large company, but another large company that really dominates the industry may be putting pressure on putting that business unit out of business. So the parent company sort of has to come to the rescue and support them, give them additional money, help them grow, and help them maybe a bigger advertising and marketing campaign to fight off the attack of a larger company onto your smaller business unit. So that would be one way that the corporate parenting can help its children by sheltering and supporting them in times of intense competitive attacks from larger competitors. Okay, so that's it for Chapter 7. We're going to be moving to Chapter 8 very shortly here, so you can look forward to that lecture where we're going to talk more about functional strategy and strategic choice. Okay, see you then. Take care.